Everyone dismissed the alien woman for being too short until a human bus driver saw her true strength. We hated mornings at the transit hub, the towering spires of Nexus Prime, the greatest megacity in the Galactic Confederation, stretched toward the burnt orange sky like accusing fingers, and she felt smaller than ever beneath them. "Move it, little one," growled a draconian businessman, his scales gleaming with expensive oils as he shouldered past her. "The kindergarten shuttle is on the other platform." Vi's light blue skin flushed darker with embarrassment. At barely 4 feet tall, she was constantly mistaken for a child among the various alien species that populated the city. Her large, deep azure eyes, the pride of her people, blinked rapidly as she fought back tears of frustration. "I'm 26 standard cycles," she muttered, adjusting her black uniform jacket and straightening the stylish beret that covered her silvery blue hair. The morning crowd surged around her like a river around a pebble. We checked her wrist device. She was running late again. Her supervisor at the Xenobiology Research Institute had warned her twice this month about tardiness. One more strike, and she'd lose the position she'd worked so hard to secure. Through the crowd, she spotted her transport pulling into the station. The massive silver vehicle hummed with energy as it prepared to dock at the platform. Panic seized her chest. It was going to leave without her. "Wait," she cried, breaking into a run. Her small legs pumped furiously as she dodged between the much larger commuters. "Please stop." The word "stop" left her lips with unusual force, and something strange happened. The air around her seemed to vibrate for a split second, and the massive transport vehicle froze in place, its engines cutting out mid-hum. We skidded to a halt, confused. Had the driver seen her? That never happened. The transport's door hissed open, and a figure stepped out that made Vi's breath catch. Unlike the various alien species she encountered daily, this was unmistakably human, a rarity in this sector. He stood nearly 2 feet taller than her, with broad shoulders filling out his dark blue driver's uniform. His sandy blonde hair was cut short, and his strong jawline sported a day's worth of stubble. "Did you do that?" he asked, his hazel eyes studying her with intense curiosity. "Do what?" Vi replied, genuinely confused. The human glanced around, then lowered his voice. "The bus shouldn't have stopped like that." The engine completely shut down when you yelled. He extended a calloused hand. "I'm Dylan." We hesitantly took his hand, surprised by its warmth. "Vitalani." "You'd better get on," Dylan said, gesturing to the transport. "But I think we should talk later." As Vi boarded, she noticed several passengers giving her strange looks. A Vesperian in a government uniform was speaking urgently into a communication device, his compound eyes fixed on her. Throughout the journey, Vi couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. Occasionally, she caught Dylan watching her in the rearview mirror, his expression thoughtful. When the transport reached her stop, Dylan called out, "Miss Delaney, you forgot to scan your transit pass." Confused, Vi approached the front. She definitely scanned it when boarding. Dylan pressed a small piece of paper into her palm. "My shift ends at 1800. Meet me at Orbital Cafe if you want to understand what happened back there." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And be careful who you talk to today." As Vi stepped off the transport, she unfolded the note. "They're watching you now. And what you did isn't supposed to be possible. Trust no one." She glanced back at the transport as it pulled away, catching Dylan's serious gaze one last time before he disappeared into the morning traffic. At work, Vi couldn't focus. She kept replaying the morning's events, wondering if she had actually done something to stop the transport. It seemed impossible. Her people, the Azurians, weren't known for any special abilities. By afternoon, she noticed a security officer she'd never seen before patrolling her floor. When she accessed her terminal, a notification indicated her security clearance had been temporarily restricted pending review. Something was very wrong, and somehow a human bus driver she'd just met might be the only person who could explain it. We left work early, citing a migraine. It wasn't entirely a lie. Her head pounded with questions and anxiety. The security officer had followed her to the lab twice, pretending to check equipment, but clearly watching her every move. As she stepped onto the crowded street, Vi pulled her beret lower and scanned her surroundings. 2 Vesperian agents in civilian clothes stood across the street, their compound eyes impossible to read, but unmistakably fixed on her. Taking a deep breath, she merged with a group of Centaurian tourists using their towering frames as cover. The Orbital Cafe sat at the junction of the business and entertainment districts, its transparent dome offering patrons a view of passing ships in low orbit. We approached cautiously, ducking into a clothing shop when she spotted another government agent near the cafe entrance. "Can I help you?" asked a bored Felician clerk, her feline eyes barely looking up from her terminal. "I need to use your back exit," Vi whispered, sliding her transit pass across the counter. "Emergency credits. Please." The clerk's ears perked up at the mention of extra money. "Through the fitting rooms, last door on the left." Minutes later, Vi emerged into an alley behind the shopping complex. She hurried around the block, approaching the cafe from the opposite direction. Through the dome, she spotted Dylan at a corner table, nursing a steaming mug and checking his timepiece. We slipped inside, keeping her head down. When she reached Dylan's table, relief washed over his face. "I was starting to think you wouldn't come," he said, standing to pull out her chair. "I almost didn't make it." "There are agents following me." Vi's voice trembled slightly. "What's happening to me?" Dylan leaned forward, his hazel eyes intense. "What you did this morning, stopping a vehicle with just your voice, it's something the Confederation has been searching for. Voice-activated kinetic manipulation. They call it the command gene. But that's impossible. My people don't have any special abilities." "Not officially," Dylan said, taking a sip of his drink, "but humans have been watching the Confederation for decades. We know they've been experimenting, trying to develop this exact capability." Vi's azure eyes widened. "You're not just a bus driver, are you?" A small smile played at the corner of Dylan's mouth. "I drive a bus, but I also work for the Human Diplomatic Intelligence Service." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "We need to get you somewhere safe while we figure this out." The casual touch sent an unexpected warmth through Vi's body. She'd never been this close to a human before. There was something magnetic about him, a confidence and strength that made her feel protected despite the danger. "Why would you help me? I'm just an Azurian lab tech." "Because what they'll do to you if they catch you." Dylan's jaw tightened. "I've seen it before. And because humans look out for the underdog, it's kind of our thing." We couldn't help but smile at that. "Is that why you're on this planet? Looking for underdogs?" "Something like that." His eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled back. "Plus, I've always had a soft spot for fierce, tiny women who can stop buses with a word." We felt her cheeks flush a deeper blue. No one had ever called her fierce before. Dylan's expression suddenly turned serious. He nodded subtly toward the entrance. "Don't look now, but we've got company." 2 agents just walked in. Vi's heart raced. "What do we do? Act natural? Like we're on a date?" Dylan reached across the table, taking her hand in his. His thumb traced small circles on her palm, sending shivers up her arm. "Laugh like I just said something charming." We giggled, surprised at how genuine it sounded. "Where will we go?" "My apartment isn't safe." "I have a place. Off-grid, but we need to lose them first." Dylan's eyes never left hers, maintaining the illusion of an intimate conversation. "When I squeeze your hand, I want you to get up and head for the restrooms. There's a service corridor that leads to the kitchen. I'll create a distraction and meet you by the waste disposal units in 2 minutes." Via nodded, acutely aware of the warmth of his hand around hers. Despite the danger, she felt a flutter of excitement in her stomach. There was something thrilling about being this close to him, about the intensity in his eyes as they planned their escape. When Dylan squeezed her hand, Vi stood casually and walked toward the restrooms, feeling the agent's eyes on her back. Once out of sight, she sprinted down the service corridor, heart pounding in her chest. Behind her, she heard a crash and shouts as Dylan's distraction began. Seconds later, he appeared beside her, grabbing her hand and pulling her through the kitchen. "Run now. Apologize later," he said to the startled kitchen staff as they raced past. Outside, Dylan led her through a maze of back alleys until they reached a small, unmarked transport pod. "Get in," he said, opening the door. As the pod lifted off, blending into the evening traffic, Vi found herself pressed against Dylan in the cramped space. His arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders, and she couldn't help but lean into his solid warmth. "Thank you," she whispered, looking up at him. "Don't thank me yet," he replied, but his eyes softened as they met hers. "We've got a long night ahead of us." The double meaning wasn't lost on either of them, and Vi felt a flutter of anticipation despite the danger they faced. The transport pod sputtered and died at the edge of the Emerald Wilds, a vast, untamed forest that bordered Nexus Prime's northern perimeter. Dylan kicked the smoking engine compartment in frustration. "Damn it! They must have hit us with a tracking pulse. The navigation system's fried." We peered into the darkening forest, its dense foliage glowing with bioluminescent fungi. "How far are we from your safe house?" "Too far now." Dylan grabbed a survival pack from beneath the pod's seat. "We need to keep moving on foot. Those Confederation agents will have drones searching this area within the hour." As if on cue, the distant whine of aerial vehicles echoed across the sky. Dylan took Vi's hand, his grip firm and reassuring as they plunged into the forest. The Emerald Wilds lived up to their name. Even in the growing darkness, the vegetation pulsed with an eerie green light. Strange calls echoed through the canopy as nocturnal creatures awakened. Vi stumbled over a root, and Dylan caught her against his chest. "Sorry," she murmured, acutely aware of his strong arms around her waist. "My people aren't exactly known for their wilderness survival skills." Dylan's laugh was warm against her ear. "Most humans aren't either these days. But I grew up in the Appalachian territories back on Earth. My father taught me how to live off the land." They pressed on for hours, the sounds of pursuit growing fainter behind them. Eventually, Dylan led them to a small clearing where a fallen tree created a natural shelter. "We should rest here," he said, unfolding a thermal blanket from his pack. "The bioluminescence will mask our heat signatures from their scanners." We sank gratefully to the ground, her legs trembling with exhaustion. "I've never been outside the city before." Dylan raised an eyebrow. "Never. Azurians are urban by nature. We prefer the security of walls and technology." She gestured to the wild forest around them. This is overwhelming. Yet here you are, handling it better than most would." Dylan's admiration was evident in his voice as he handed her a nutrient bar from his pack. We took a bite, surprised at the pleasant taste. "Human food?" "Oh, we tend to make the best of what we've got," Dylan said with a wink. "Another human trait you might appreciate." The double meaning hung in the air between them, and Vi felt her skin flush a deeper blue. She'd heard rumors about humans, their passion, their intensity, their lack of the inhibitions that characterize most Confederation species. "So," she said, changing the subject, "tell me more about this command gene. How did I get it? My people aren't known for any special abilities." Dylan settled beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "The Confederation has been experimenting with genetic manipulation for decades. They've been trying to create the perfect soldier, one who could control technology with voice commands alone. But I'm not a soldier. I'm a xenobiologist. That's what makes you special." The artificial command gene never worked. It drove the test subjects insane. But somehow you developed it naturally. His fingers brushed a strand of silvery blue hair from her face. "You're 1 in a trillion, Vitalani." The gentle touch sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the cool night air. No one had ever looked at her the way Dylan did, like she was something precious and powerful, not just a tiny woman to be dismissed. "I've spent my whole life being overlooked," she admitted. "Being too small, too quiet, invisible." "I saw you," Dylan said simply. "From the moment you stopped my bus, I saw you." The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. We had never felt this kind of attraction before, raw and immediate. Among her people, relationships developed slowly, methodically, over years of careful consideration. "Humans move quickly, don't they?" she whispered. Dylan's smile was both tender and hungry. "Life's too short not to, especially when you're being hunted by the Confederation." A distant crack of branches made them both freeze. Dylan extinguished their small light, pulling Vi closer to him in the darkness. His heartbeat was strong and steady against her ear. "Don't move," he breathed. A patrol of drones hummed overhead, their searchlights sweeping the forest canopy. Vi pressed herself tighter against Dylan, finding comfort in his solid presence. His hand moved soothingly along her back, and she had to stifle a small sound of pleasure at the sensation. When the drones finally passed, neither of them pulled away. In the soft glow of the bioluminescent forest, Dylan's face was cast in shadows that emphasized his strong jawline. We found herself reaching up to trace it with her fingertips. "Is this normal?" she asked. "This feeling?" Dylan caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm that sent heat spiraling there. Chimani. "Nothing about this situation is normal, Vi. But what I feel for you, that's as real as it gets." He leaned down, hesitating just a breath away from her lips. "Tell me if this isn't what you want." In answer, Vi closed the distance between them. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with a hunger that surprised them both. His hands tangled in her hair, dislodging her beret, and she marveled at the alien warmth of his skin against hers. In the heart of the wild forest, hunted and alone, Vi discovered a new kind of strength, not just in her mysterious ability, but in the courage to embrace what she wanted. And what she wanted, with startling clarity, was this human man who had seen her true worth when everyone else had looked past her. Dawn broke over the emerald wilds, filtering through the canopy in dappled patterns. Vi awoke nestled against Dylan's chest, his arm protectively around her. The night had brought them closer in ways she'd never experienced. Tender touches and whispered confessions beneath the glowing forest ceiling. "Morning, tiny powerhouse," Dylan murmured, his voice husky with sleep. Vi smiled against his skin. "Is that my new nickname?" "Better than little one, isn't it?" He brushed his lips against her forehead, sending a pleasant shiver down her spine. The intimate moment was shattered by the return of the patrol drones, their engines louder and more numerous than before. "They've intensified the search," Dylan said, quickly packing their makeshift camp. "We need to move." As they prepared to leave, Vi spotted one of the drones hovering just beyond the tree line, its sensors sweeping in their direction. "Dylan," she whispered urgently, "it's going to see us." Without thinking, Vi focused on the drone and said firmly, "Turn around." The same strange vibration she'd felt at the bus stop rippled through the air. To her astonishment, the drone immediately pivoted and flew in the opposite direction. Dylan stared at her, wide-eyed. "Holy shit, you just controlled that drone." "I didn't know I could do that," Vi said, looking at her hands in wonder. The command gene must work on any technology, not just vehicles. Dylan's expression was a mixture of awe and concern. "This is why they want you so badly. You could potentially control any machine in the Confederation." The implications were staggering. No wonder the authorities were hunting her with such determination. "Let me try something else," Vi said, spotting another drone in the distance. Concentrating, she commanded, "Show me your camera feed." A holographic display suddenly appeared before her, showing a bird's-eye view of the forest, and more importantly, the positions of all the search teams. "This is incredible," Dylan breathed, studying the display. "You're not just stopping machines, you're fully interfacing with them." We felt a surge of confidence. All her life she'd been dismissed as insignificant, but now she held power that made even the mighty Confederation fear her. "There's a patrol heading this way, she noted, pointing to the display. "And look, they've deployed Tracken hunters." Dylan cursed under his breath. Trackens are the Confederation's elite trackers. They can sense bioelectrical signatures. "Can they sense this?" Vi asked, focusing on the drone again. "Jam all communications in a 5-mile radius." The drone beeped in acknowledgement, and the holographic display showed all the search team communication links going dark. Dylan laughed in disbelief. "You're a natural. But we should still keep moving. The jamming will buy us time, but they'll adapt." They traveled deeper into the forest, Vi occasionally commanding passing drones to mislead the search parties. With each successful use of her ability, her confidence grew. For once in her life, her small stature seemed irrelevant. Her power had nothing to do with physical size. By midday, they reached a small stream. Dylan suggested they follow it to mask their scent from the Tracken hunters. As they waded through the cool water, Vi slipped on a mossy stone. Dylan caught her, lifting her effortlessly. "I could carry you," he offered, his hands lingering at her waist. "Save your strength for drone commanding." Vi wrapped her arms around his neck, enjoying the closeness. "My hero," she teased, though there was truth in her words. "Just doing my duty for interspecies relations," he replied with a roguish grin. "Is that what we're calling it now?" We laughed, then grew serious. "Last night was, I've never felt anything like that before." Dylan's eyes softened. "Azurians don't do the whole whirlwind romance thing, huh? We typically court for years before even holding hands. My mother would faint if she knew about us." "And what about you?" Dylan asked, setting her down on the bank but keeping her close. "Any regrets?" Vi stood on her tiptoes to kiss him, savoring the now familiar warmth of his lips. "Not one." Their moment of peace was interrupted by a high-pitched whine, different from the drones. Vi turned to see a sleek, dart-shaped craft cutting through the trees with unnatural precision. "Hunter-seeker," Dylan hissed, pulling her behind a large boulder. "Top-of-the-line Confederation tech. Those things can detect specific genetic signatures." We peered around the rock, watching the craft hover and scan. An idea formed in her mind. "If it's looking for genetic signatures, it's still a machine, right?" she whispered. Dylan nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Worth a try." Vi focused on the hunter-seeker, feeling the now familiar energy building within her. "Identify target as non-viable. Return to base." For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then the craft emitted a series of beeps and turned away, accelerating back toward the city. "You did it!" Dylan exclaimed, lifting her in a celebratory embrace and spinning her around. We laughed, exhilarated by her success and the joy of being in his arms. When he set her down, his expression had changed to one of determination. "We need to get you to the human embassy," he said. "With abilities like yours, you could change the balance of power in the Confederation. Humans have been treated as second-class citizens for too long. Your gift could give us the leverage we need for equal standing." We hesitated. "I don't want to be a weapon, Dylan." He cupped her face gently. "Not a weapon. A shield. A protector. You could save countless lives, human and alien alike." Before she could respond, a new sound cut through the forest, the distinctive howl of a Trakan hunter. Unlike the machines she could control, these were living beings, bred for one purpose, to track and capture. "They found us," Dylan said grimly, "and these you can't command." "Stay behind me," Dylan commanded, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous tone Vi hadn't heard before. He reached into his boot and pulled out a compact pulse pistol. I wasn't always just a bus driver. "Human Special Forces," Vi guessed, suddenly understanding his survival skills and combat readiness. Dylan nodded grimly. "7th Tactical. 4 years embedded with Confederation peacekeepers before I went undercover in civilian transport." The howls of the Trakan hunters grew closer, at least 3 distinct voices calling to each other through the forest. "Those neural implants they wear," Vi said suddenly, eyeing Dylan's weapon. "They're still technology, right?" Dylan's eyes widened. "The targeting systems, yes, but you'd have to get close enough to—" "I don't think I need to anymore." Vi closed her eyes, extending her awareness outward. She could feel it now, a web of energy signatures pulsing through the forest. The drones were bright spots of organized data, but the Trakans had a different signature. Organic bodies enhanced with neural tech. "There," she whispered, focusing on the nearest hunter. "Deactivate targeting system." A distant yelp of confusion confirmed her success. Dylan stared at her in amazement. "How did you—" "I can feel them now," Vi said, her voice filled with wonder. "All the energy patterns, the connections. It's like seeing a new color for the first time." Another howl much closer. Dylan pushed Vi behind a massive tree trunk and took up a defensive position. "I got one, but there are still 2 more," Vi warned, "and I think they've realized what I'm doing. They're adapting somehow." A blur of motion erupted from the underbrush. A Trakan hunter, nearly 7 feet tall with mottled gray skin and elongated limbs. Its eyes were covered by a neural interface that glowed an angry red. Dylan fired 3 precise shots. The first 2 the creature dodged with unnatural speed, but the third caught it in the shoulder, spinning it around. Instead of falling, the Traken snarled and charged. "Down!" Dylan shouted, tackling Vi to the ground as the creature leaped over them. Rolling to his feet with practiced ease, Dylan engaged the Traken in close combat. Vi had never seen a human move so fast. Dylan matched the enhanced alien blow for blow, his movements economical and lethal. "The interface," Dylan grunted between strikes. "Can you shut it down?" Vi focused on the neural tech wrapped around the Traken's head. "Overload!" The device sparked and smoked. The Traken howled in pain, clawing at its face. Dylan didn't hesitate. A swift kick to the creature's knee, followed by a precise strike to its neck, dropped it to the ground unconscious. "One down," Dylan panted, retrieving his weapon. We felt a strange tingling in her fingertips, a new awareness blooming within her. She could sense the fallen Traken's neural implant, but also something more, the bioelectrical field of its body. "Dylan, I think I can..." The words died in her throat as the second Traken burst from the trees, tackling Dylan to the ground. His weapon went flying as they rolled down a short embankment, locked in combat. Without thinking, Vi reached out with her mind toward the creature's neural implant. But instead of just commanding the technology, she pushed deeper, into the energy field of the Traken itself. "Sleep," she commanded. The effect was immediate. The Traken went limp, collapsing atop Dylan, who shoved the unconscious body aside with a grunt of surprise. "What did you do?" he asked, climbing back up the embankment. "I'm not sure," Vi admitted. "I think I affected its bioelectrical field directly. Not just the tech, the actual nervous system." Dylan's expression was a mixture of awe and concern. That's beyond what the Confederation thought was possible with a command gene. A twig snapped behind them. The third Traken stood at the edge of the clearing, but this one was different. Its neural interface was more extensive, covering most of its face and extending down its neck. "Asset Vitalani," it spoke in a flat, artificial voice. "Surrender for processing or termination." Dylan moved protectively in front of Vi. "Run," he whispered. "I'll hold it off." "No," Vi replied firmly. "We do this together." The Traken charged. Dylan met it head-on, a flurry of strikes and counterstrikes that seemed almost choreographed in their deadly precision. Despite his skill, the enhanced alien was stronger, faster. A vicious blow sent Dylan sprawling. As the Traken turned toward Vi, she felt something snap inside her, a barrier breaking down. The energy fields around her blazed into her awareness with blinding clarity. Not just the technology, but everything. The bioelectrical signatures of living beings, the subtle electromagnetic fields of the planet itself. "Stop!" she commanded, her voice resonating with newfound power. The Traken froze mid-stride, its body trembling with the effort to move against her command. "Kneel," Vi ordered, and the creature dropped to its knees. Dylan staggered to his feet, wiping blood from his lip. "Holy shit, Vi!" "Remove your neural interface," she told the Traken, who obeyed with mechanical precision, revealing a face twisted with rage and fear. "The Confederation will never stop hunting you," the Traken snarled in its natural voice, harsh and guttural. "What you are, what you can do, it threatens everything." Vi stepped closer, no longer intimidated by the creature's size. "Tell your masters this. I am not a weapon to be used. I am Vi Taleni, and I choose my own path." She looked at the Traken, sensing the complex network of its nervous system. With a gentle mental touch, she commanded, "Sleep and forget." The creature's eyes rolled back, and it collapsed to the forest floor. Dylan approached slowly, his expression filled with wonder. "That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen." He cupped her face in his hands. "You're the most incredible thing I've ever seen." Vi leaned into his touch, suddenly exhausted from the exertion of her evolving powers. "I don't think I could do that again right now. It's draining." "Then we keep moving," Dylan said, gathering their supplies. "The human embassy is still 2 days' journey through the forest." As they prepared to leave, Dylan pulled Vi into his arms, his kiss fierce and hungry. "I know we're in danger," he murmured against her lips. "But watching you stand up to that Traken, all that power in your tiny perfect body, was the sexiest damn thing I've ever seen." Vi laughed against his mouth, her body responding instantly to his touch. Is that a human thing? Finding power sexy? Finding you sexy is just a me thing, Dylan replied, reluctantly releasing her. And when we're safe, I plan to show you exactly how much. The promise in his eyes sent heat coursing through Vi's body. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, not as a small, insignificant creature to be dismissed, but as a woman of extraordinary strength and power. And in Dylan's arms, she had found something equally powerful, a partner who saw her true worth. By nightfall, Vi could barely stand. Each step became a monumental effort as the after effects of her expanded abilities took their toll. I've got you, Dylan murmured, sweeping her into his arms when she stumbled for the third time. Her small frame felt feather-light against his chest. I'm sorry, she whispered, her azure eyes dulled with exhaustion. I don't understand why this is happening. New muscles get sore when you use them for the first time, Dylan explained, carrying her through the darkening forest. Your mind just bench-pressed a Kraken's entire nervous system. Vi managed a weak smile at his analogy. Is that how humans explain everything? With exercise metaphors? Only the sexy ones, Dylan winked, earning a soft laugh that warmed his heart. Through the trees ahead, a structure loomed, angular and abandoned, partially reclaimed by the forest. Looks like an old research outpost, Dylan observed. Perfect timing. The facility had been deserted for years, but its security systems still functioned. We mustered enough strength to command the doors open, revealing a dusty interior lit by emergency power cells. Rest, Dylan insisted, laying her gently on a couch in what appeared to be a common area. He secured the perimeter, finding the outpost remarkably intact despite its abandonment. When he returned, Vi was examining a terminal that had flickered to life at her approach. Dylan, look at this, she called, her voice stronger with excitement. This was a human Azurian joint research facility. Dylan peered over her shoulder at the display. Project Genesis, he read, classified level 9. Vi's fingers danced across the interface. They were studying psychic abilities in humans. What? Dylan's brow furrowed. Humans don't have psychic abilities. According to this, some did, centuries ago on Earth. The ability was called electrokinesis, the manipulation of electrical fields with the mind. We scrolled through the data. The Confederation suppressed this research and the ability died out. Except what? They took genetic samples from the last known human electrokinetics and spliced them with Azurian DNA. Vi's voice trembled. My mother was a research assistant here 27 years ago. Dylan sat beside her, processing the implications. So the command gene isn't Azurian at all. It's human in origin. A hybrid, Vi corrected. The human psychic ability combined with Azurian neural plasticity. She looked up at him, her eyes wide. That's why I feel this connection to you. Part of my ability is human. Dylan brushed a strand of silvery blue hair from her face, his touch lingering on her cheek. And why I felt drawn to you from the moment we met. Their moment of discovery was interrupted by a proximity alert from the security system. Vi accessed the outpost cameras, revealing a small group approaching through the forest, 5 figures of various species. Refugees, Dylan identified, recognizing the desperate, furtive movements, probably heading for the human embassy like us. Vi zoomed in on one of the aliens, a slender Morayan with iridescent skin. She's injured. We should help them, Dylan said without hesitation. Vi nodded. Open exterior door, she commanded the system. The refugees entered cautiously, the wounded Morayan supported by a stocky Voltan, followed by a Centaurian, a Felician, and a nervous-looking Trill with communication tech strapped to his back. We mean no harm, the Centaurian announced, his forearms raised in a peaceful gesture. We seek only shelter for the night. You're welcome here, Dylan replied, stepping forward. I'm Dylan, human diplomatic intelligence. This is Vi. The Trill's eyes widened. You're the ones they're hunting. The human and the Azurian with the command gene. We tensed, but Dylan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. And you are? Pim, the Trill replied, adjusting his communication pack. Former Confederation intelligence analyst. I defected when I discovered what they were planning. Which is, Dylan prompted. Pym glanced nervously at his companions. The Confederation isn't just hunting Vi for her abilities. They need her genetic material to create an army of command soldiers. They've been working on it for decades, but all their artificial attempts failed. They need a natural carrier. That's why they sent the Trakens, Vi realized. Not just Trakens anymore, Pym said grimly. They've deployed Commander Rax. Dylan cursed under his breath. The cyborg? Pym nodded. Half draconian, half machine, specifically designed to resist command abilities. While the refugees settled in, Pym helped Vi access the Confederation's secure channels through his communication equipment. The transmissions confirmed his story, and worse. They're planning to extract my genetic material and dispose of me, Vi said, her voice steady despite the horror of the words. Then use it to create soldiers loyal only to the Draconian High Command. And their first target will be the human colonies, Dylan added, reading further. They've always seen humanity as the biggest threat to their control. We leaned against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. Because humans are unpredictable, creative, stubborn as hell, Dylan added with a grim smile. We don't like being told what to do. As night deepened, the refugees shared their stories. Each had suffered under Confederation oppression and sought the rumored sanctuary of the human embassy. The Moraean, Elia, had been a medical researcher forced to work on genetic experiments. The Voltan, Krug, was a former security officer who refused to imprison political dissidents. The Centaurian, Mav, and the Felician, Talia, were journalists who uncovered Confederation atrocities. Their stories strengthened Vi's resolve. This wasn't just about her survival anymore. It was about stopping a regime that would enslave all species. Later, as the refugees slept, Vi and Dylan found themselves alone in what had once been a laboratory observation room. Through the window, the bioluminescent forest cast an ethereal glow over the clearing. "How are you feeling?" Dylan asked, his hand finding hers in the dim light. "Stronger," Vi replied, "but scared. This Commander Rax sounds formidable." "He is," Dylan admitted. "I encountered him once during my Special Forces days, nearly didn't make it out." Vi turned to face him, her small hands framing his face. "Then we face him together. My powers, your training." Dylan leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers. "There's something I need to tell you, Vi. If we don't make it tomorrow..." She silenced him with a kiss. "We will make it, and then you can tell me everything." The kiss deepened, months of longing compressed into days of intensity. We marveled at how perfectly they fit together despite their size difference. In Dylan's arms, she wasn't too small. She was exactly right. "I never thought I'd find someone who saw me," she whispered against his lips. "Really saw me." "I see you," Dylan murmured, lifting her effortlessly onto a console, bringing them eye to eye. "I've always seen you." Their night together was a revelation, tender and passionate, a claiming of each other before the coming storm. In the afterglow, wrapped in Dylan's strong arms, Vi felt complete for the first time in her life. Morning came too soon, bringing with it the distant sound of Confederation ships. Commander Rax had found them. The ground trembled as Commander Rax's ship landed in the clearing outside the research facility. Through the observation window, Vi watched the massive craft disgorge a contingent of Confederation soldiers led by a towering figure. Half draconian, half machine. Rax's scaled skin was interwoven with metallic implants, his right arm entirely replaced by a weapon system. His eyes glowed an unnatural amber. "He's immune to direct commands," Pym explained nervously. "His neural pathways are shielded." Dylan checked his pulse pistol. "We're outgunned and outnumbered." We studied the laboratory equipment surrounding them. "Maybe not. This facility was designed to amplify and study psychic abilities." She pointed to a neural interface chair in the center of the room. "I think I can use this to boost my powers." "It's too dangerous," Dylan protested. "Those systems are decades old." "It's our only chance," Vi replied. her azure eyes meeting his with determination. I can connect to every system in Nexus Prime from here, expose the Confederation's plans to everyone. The refugees exchanged glances. We'll hold them off as long as we can, Mav the Centaurian promised, his forearms already preparing makeshift barricades. Ilya, the Morayan medic, approached Vi. The interface might kill you if it overloads your neural pathways. Then we'll have to make sure it doesn't, Dylan said firmly. He turned to Krug, the Voltan's security officer. Help me secure the perimeter. Pim, can you boost any transmission Vi manages to send? The Trill nodded, already connecting his equipment to the facility's systems. As the others prepared for battle, Dylan pulled Vi aside. I don't like this plan. Vi reached up, her small blue hand against his cheek. I spent my whole life being overlooked because of my size. Now I can use that. They'll underestimate me, just like everyone always has. Dylan caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. Not everyone. No, she smiled. Not you. The moment was interrupted by the facility's security alarm. Commander Rack's voice boomed through the speakers. Surrender the Azurian female, and the rest of you will be permitted to live. Charming fellow, Dylan muttered. He pulled Vi into a fierce embrace. Whatever happens, know that meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. Vi rose on her tiptoes, kissing him with all the passion she felt. I'm not saying goodbye, Dylan. This is just the beginning for us. As she settled into the neural interface chair, Alia attached monitoring sensors to her temples. Your vital signs will appear on this display if they reach critical levels. Pull her out, Dylan finished, positioning himself protectively beside Vi. We closed her eyes as the interface activated, connecting her consciousness to the facility's systems. Immediately, she felt her awareness expand exponentially, not just to the building, but outward in waves, touching every piece of technology in range. Outside, the first explosions rocked the facility as Rax's forces began their assault. Dylan and the refugees took defensive positions, returning fire through reinforced windows and doorways. Within the neural network, Vi pushed her consciousness further, reaching the city's communication grid, transportation systems, security networks. She could feel millions of connections, each a potential tool. They've breached the east entrance, Krug shouted over the weapon's fire. Vi's neural activity is spiking, Ilya warned, monitoring the displays. Vi barely heard them. She was everywhere at once, seeing through security cameras, feeling the pulse of data streams, touching the very heartbeat of the city's technology. And there, buried deep in the Confederation's secure servers, she found what she needed: the complete files on Project Genesis and the plans for the Command Gene Army. Commander Rax burst through the laboratory door, his weapon arm glowing with charge energy. Step away from the Azurian, he ordered. Dylan stood his ground, pulse pistol aimed at the cyborg's head. Not happening. Rax's laugh was a mechanical rasp. A human protecting an alien. How predictably sentimental. A human protecting someone he loves, Dylan corrected. And humans get really cranky when you threaten what's ours. We heard the exchange through the facility's audio systems. Love. Dylan loved her. The realization gave her renewed focus. Broadcast on all frequency, she commanded the network. Priority override. Across Nexus Prime, every communication device, every view screen, every public address system suddenly activated. Vi's voice, amplified and clear, reached every corner of the city. Citizens of the Confederation, I am V. Talani. The authorities have been lying to you. The Command Gene program isn't about security, it's about control. They plan to create an army of genetically modified soldiers to subjugate all species, starting with humans. As she spoke, the evidence from the Confederation servers displayed on screens throughout the city: classified documents, research files, military plans. In the laboratory, Rax roared with rage, firing at the neural interface. Dylan tackled him, the two crashing into equipment as they grappled. The Command Gene isn't a weapon, Vi continued broadcasting. It's a bridge. Human psychic abilities combined with Azurian neuroplasticity. Not a tool for war, but a symbol of what we can achieve together. Vi pushed her consciousness deeper into the city's systems, finding the cyborg implants within Rax himself. They were shielded against direct commands, but not against the more subtle manipulation she learned in the forest. As Dylan fought valiantly against the physically superior cyborg, Vi reached through the network into Rax's systems, not commanding, rewiring. Rax suddenly froze, his mechanical components conflicting with his organic parts. "What is happening?" he growled. "I'm showing you what cooperation feels like," Vi answered through the facility's speakers. "Your draconian half and your mechanical half working in harmony instead of one controlling the other." With a final surge of her power, Vi broadcast the complete truth to every corner of the Confederation. Not just the evidence of the military's plans, but the history of human-Azurian cooperation that had been suppressed for generations. The neural interface began to smoke, the ancient systems overloading from the strain. Dylan broke away from the immobilized Rax and rushed to Vi's side. "Her vital signs are critical," Aaliyah warned. "We need to disconnect her now." Dylan carefully removed the interface, cradling Vi's small form as she slumped forward. "Vi, stay with me, tiny powerhouse." Her eyelids fluttered, then opened. Did it work? Pym was monitoring the communications network. It worked better than we could have imagined. The citizens are rising up everywhere. The Confederation Council is calling for an emergency session. The military leadership is being detained. Outside, the Confederation soldiers had stopped fighting, many of them watching the revelations on their own communication devices in shock. Commander Rax remained frozen, his systems permanently recalibrated. "The Confederation will fall," he stated, his voice now oddly calm. "Not fall," Vi corrected, her voice weak but determined as Dylan helped her stand. "Transform into something better, something equal." 3 days later, Vi and Dylan stood on the balcony of the human embassy, watching the sun set over a changed Nexus Prime. The Confederation Council had been dissolved, replaced by an interim government with representatives from all species, including, for the first time, a human high counselor. "So, Ambassador Talani," Dylan said, his arm around Vi's waist, "how does it feel to be the most respected person in the city?" Vi leaned against him, still marveling at how perfectly she fit against his side, despite their size difference. "Strange. Yesterday I couldn't get anyone to take me seriously. Today they want me to lead the new Command Gene Research Institute, with a focus on cooperative applications rather than military ones." Dylan added, "Exactly what you wanted." "And you?" Vi asked, turning in his arms to face him. "Will Special Agent Harris be returning to active duty now that your bus driver cover is blown?" Dylan laughed. "Actually, I've been offered a security position at your new institute. Apparently, they want someone who's good at recognizing potential when others miss it." Vi rose on her tiptoes as Dylan bent down, their lips meeting in the middle, a perfect compromise that symbolized their relationship. "I can't believe how much has changed in a week," Vi murmured against his lips. "Some things haven't changed," Dylan replied, lifting her effortlessly so they were eye to eye. "I knew from the moment you stopped my bus that you were extraordinary. Size has nothing to do with strength." Vi wrapped her arms around his neck, her azure eyes bright with happiness. "And sometimes the greatest adventures begin with someone simply seeing you for who you really are." As the first stars appeared above Nexus Prime, Vi Talani, once dismissed and overlooked, held the future in her small blue hands, and beside her stood the human who had recognized her true strength from the very beginning.